You're listening to WCAT Radio, your home for authentic Catholic programming.
Hello, Seekers of Jesus. This is Romuald Simeone, and we're now in the Epistles of John. The book is the Bible, Love Letters from Your Father, the Epistles of John, and we're into the second epistle. And it's astounding here, and a really important teaching that is being given here in this second epistle of John. I'll come to it in a minute, where he says he's addressing this epistle to a lady, to a Madonna. And he says that, I send greetings to the esteemed lady I am now addressing, the chosen bride of Christ, the community of God's faithful believers. He makes that the community of the Christians are the bride of Jesus. Now, let's back up and we'll come to that point where we keep saying the Christian community. The Christian community. We go to Mass and we go to the Christian community, community of believers. And we have Mass, we have a sermon, we have some singing, we have the ritual, we have the body and blood of Christ, and everybody goes home. Everybody is dispersed. And John is saying something a little different here. First of all, let us back up and say what the activated mission of the Christ and the apostles are to the world. There's two definite reach outs. The first is a perfection of the old covenant. When we talk about the New Testament, we talk about the Gospels, what we see here is that there was the reach out of the prophets, reach out of Moses, the reach out of the, it becomes a reach out of the different elements in the Jewish ambience, the Jewish culture. And then we have always the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the coalition. And then you have Jesus coming. So you have prophetism. The godly power in the world is prophetism. One prophet after another. Starting from, in the development, from Abraham, going into Jacob, Isaac and Jacob, and all the other prophets that we have. They always give another insight of the revelation of God. They also do correcting. They are part of the actual cultures in which they lived. Individuals, they seem to be like individuals. You say, well, here's Isaiah. What does Isaiah say? What does Isaiah do? What did Jeremiah do? What did Nehemiah do? What did each one? What did Joseph do? What did David do? And we kind of see them as like individual prophets who developed the revelations of the Jewish religion. You give one insight after another. The main one, of course, was Moses. And so you have a prophetism of reach out. They are ones who speak for God. Prophets, Nabi. They speak for God. They're sent by God to give a revelation, give a certain teaching in the part of their culture their ambience, and they're inspired by God and by the prophets who speak in God's name, in Yahweh's name, to act as images of God in that situation. So they go to, for instance, to the Dead Sea, where you have the homosexuals that are creating a new form of non-marriage, of having a relationship with each other. God condemns it. He condemns it, and the Jews have to, with Lot and the Jews, they have to control that. And no, marriage is sacred in God's sight. He established marriage. So what people want to do, how they want to destroy it, how they want to have sexual diversity, a sexual diversity that is not a marriage, that is not reproductive, then the prophet has to correct it. So, in images, the image that the prophet gives of God, of Yahweh, is that they must fulfill what God established in the human race, the morality of the human race. Okay, see that so clearly in regard to the Ten Commandments, that what persons are doing that is out of the area of the Ten Commandments. So God made us one. He made us his family. Therefore he says, thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not attack those that are trying to live a moral life, even if they don't happen to be Jews. That's why they say also the stranger is welcome in the Holy Land. The Samaritan, Jesus comes and straightens that out too. So all the elements of the divine presence in creation are applied to the human race. Who is the main shepherd in Ezekiel? Who is the main shepherd of the human race? Well, it's the Father. It is God himself. He says, I send you as shepherds, and you do not shepherd them the way they're supposed to be shepherded, and you take them and use them for yourself, use them for your greed, use them to build up yourself and your situations and your prosperity. But do you take care of the sheep? Then I will come and shepherd them. God is the ultimate shepherd. God is fatherly. And Jesus comes now, he shows that the image of the Father has to be clarified. And Jesus comes and as the Son of God and sets them all straight. That God is not only the Creator, the powerful Creator that we honor and fear because he could punish us and reject us if we don't follow the straight and narrow. But Jesus says he's our Father. He isn't just the Creator. He's our Father. The pagans didn't know what the nature of God was. He shepherds us. He's a shepherd. He's concerned about us. There's a connection between God and the human race and the individual. He's a leader. He's a teacher. We said the scribes and the Pharisees, they are rabbis. They are teachers. They are priests. They are the mediators between God and man. They do the sacrifices that show that the people are submitting themselves to God. They are the rulers. They are the ones who correct. So, when Jesus comes, he shows this, that they, even these prophets and all that, what they taught was actually limited. Each one of them. You have if you get all of them together, then you've got all the teachings of the revelations of God. But individually, they are limited. And they add to each other as they come. And not only that, they're partial and unclear. They teach one thing. They teach about the justice of God, and another one teaches the love of God, the fidelity of God, how God backs us up. If you read the 150 Psalms, you get all of those different adjustments in the Psalms of David and of the others who wrote the Psalms. So, with so many prophecies, it became unclear. When he talked about Messiah, you say, well, Messiah is going to be eternal. He's going to be not just the son of David, he's going to be the Lord of David. He's going to do, but when you talk about David, look into it. He's not only says one thing and another, they seem almost contradictory if you read the different Psalms. One says of God as being so merciful, the other one says of he being so just, so corrective. So you can get confused just by reading the scriptures as written, as a book. We have to come to an understanding of what is symbolic and what is factual. So, going to the different prophets, they are sinners. They say one thing and do another. Here, Solomon, having the teachings of God, telling us all these different points of wisdom of how to live our lives, and then he's got 1,000 brides. He's got concubines. He's got 1,000 of them. You know which? It's hard to distinguish which one is his wife or the queen, and which ones are just concubines, which is a harem and a super harem, a harem. Talk about the Muslims with 4 wives, and then their leaders having any number of wives. But what about David with 10 wives, and then committed adultery? So the Psalms that he's talking about are corrective, and then he's not practicing. How they went and killed each other. How the different kings, Saul and Absalom and David, were in conflict with each other. So, when Jesus comes, he is the perfect one. He's the non-sinning. He's the Son of God. And he clarifies that, because when the sinless Son of God comes, and he establishes and raises up and extends the image of God in himself. So he becomes a model. The others are, at times, are not models at all. The different prophets sometimes are personally confused. Some are very saintly, others are not. It's hard for us to say, for instance, Saint David. They did. Look in the scriptures. It doesn't sound very much like a saint. Many things that he did. But with Jesus, it's also saintly. Now, his image, and he passes his image on to the apostles, to the disciples. They are not exactly sinless, but they all aspire and keep talking about modeling Jesus. So then we come into the teachings of the revelation of John in it's really like Revelation. It's hard to say that he has the book of Revelation, but he reveals things as an apostle, as the last apostle, of what is happening now in the Christian church, in the communities. Jesus says, go and teach all what I taught you. Teach them what I have taught you. And you are infallible. You're prophets. But now, with John's epistles, you can see his presence of the glorified Jesus. John says here, we reach out to you. I send greetings to the esteemed lady I am now addressing, the chosen bride of Jesus, the community of the Lord's faithful believers. So, the point is, what I'm trying to make is that we focus so much on the individual prophet. We focus on Jesus as an individual. We focus on the individual apostles. And we see their attitudes and their sanctity and how they are saying, not only do we teach Jesus Christ, but we model Jesus Christ. We are the pattern of Jesus Christ. John, in this revelation and this second epistle, says something stupendous. Let's see if we can get it right and understand it. He is saying that it's not just me as a leader, but Jesus Christ dwells in the social body of Jesus, the church. This lady is the spouse of Jesus, the bride of Jesus. So, he's saying that there's a social body, the community of Christian believers is as if it's one single bride, a unity. And she is present in the cultures of the societies in which they live. They're in all the different cultures. They're in pagan cultures. So, that is exactly what the bride of Christ is supposed to be. We could be, like St. Francis referred to himself as the bride of Christ and says, well, I go out and preach, and I beget, in converting people, I'm begetting children into the family of Jesus. I'm his bride. It's a strange metaphor. It seems strange to us that the man is calling himself the bride of Jesus. But through the graces that Jesus gives St. Francis and gives to us as missionaries or apologists and missionaries who go out to bring people back into the church, back into Jesus Christ, to the sacraments. We see them as like individuals. So for instance, a fine example we keep giving is someone like Mother Teresa. As a Catholic, she goes out and does the corporal and spiritual work of mercy with people that are dying and dying without God, without knowing Christianity. But she is helping them and giving them an example. When they see her, their culture changes from Hindu or Buddhist or pagan, they become Christian. We call that conversion. Now, but John is talking about the entire body, the presence of that church. It's a temple of Jesus. It's a physical body of Jesus in the community. Isn't that astounding? To be a Christian, to belong to a local parish, we would say in our parlance, in our culture, we call it a parish. But is that parish a temple of Jesus where we go to honor him and worship him only? No, it's supposed to be a nucleus, we would say the DNA, a culture, an embryo that it goes into the society and identifies that society as a Christian society, has influence over them. And that's what he's saying there. You're not just an individual witnessing for Jesus outside of your own family. You have to be also an outside of the church that you attend, but that church itself influences the culture. It is part of, it's a diverse culture within that culture. The yeast that affects all of the dough, all of the bread, the yeast that affects it, that makes it rise, that makes it holy. Get the point where we're going to now? In our American culture, this has been suppressed. And we allow it to be suppressed. It should not be allowed to be suppressed because it's part of our divine commandment. We are to affect the culture around us. To have Christians in the culture is to affect it around us. I'll try to give an example of it. Let's see, Lourdes. People go to Lourdes, they're not just going to a city. They're going to a place where the Christian culture, Catholic culture, and the relationship of people to the Virgin Mary and through her to Jesus Christ is essential. If we just say Lourdes, we're not talking about going to like Paris. But Paris should be the same way. Is that the Christians who are in that culture are supposed to be public and obvious and active. It's just as an individual, Christian has to be a united discipling entity to others outside, to others in other culture, the pagan culture, and we witness and we convert them, so should that church not just be something where people can go and worship, and when they come out, you see that there is no effect of that church in that neighborhood, in that area. This is what is so lacking, that we're not following the commandment of Jesus. And this is what John the evangelist is saying, that must happen in his own. Why was he in exile? Why were the apostles being killed? Because their communities affected and offended the culture of the pagans around them. That's where they were crucified. That's why they were put into the Colosseum or anywhere and tortured and killed by the wild animals. They were being blamed by the pagans for offending and changing the culture, the pagan culture of their gods. They were saying that the emperor was a divine person, an august person, which meant a divine person, that you had to give him worship. You're not just obeying him, you have to give him worship. It's like with the Nazis, that the people had to take an oath, not just being German, part of a culture, but they had to swear fidelity personally to Adolf Hitler. The point was well made. We swear our fidelity to Jesus in public. It affects our culture. There has to be a Christian culture in opposing and at least witnessing against the culture that is the national culture, the public culture. In other words, we have to not just be in the temple of God and our churches, but we have to be in the public square. If we don't affect the public square, if we don't affect, in fact, even to extend it to the leadership that affects the culture of our nation. The American culture was founded on a Christian culture. The founding fathers used the Bible to establish the principles of Americanism. Even insisted on it and made sure that it was, they say, freedom of religion. That the government cannot create a religion against your religion nor suppress it. Not exactly what's happening, is it? We see even when I was a boy, we say, oh boy, we got to elect Catholics to the different political parties. Everything will be all right. Sure, if they pass on the culture of Jesus. But they deliberately, you might call it the heresy of the first so-called Catholic president, who says, I'm not going to let my beliefs affect my decisions. So why are we electing a person who is Christian, who's not Christian? I would call it the brigade of the Judas Catholics. We have to have a special presence. And when I was a boy, I was in a parish that was in an Italian neighborhood, Italian Sicilian. That's really two cultures, by the way, it's not one. And we had street processions. The people who were in that neighborhood saw the Blessed Sacrament going through the streets on Corpus Christi. Saw the people putting out decorations on their houses, honoring the Eucharist. On their shoulders, they had these like platforms. The men carried these statues of the Virgin Mary, of Jesus Christ in agony, Jesus Christ at the Last Supper, and with incense and all going through the streets. Look at Guadalupe in Mexico. You go to Mexico City, they are demonstrating Christian teaching publicly. They're kneeling on the streets, going on their knees to the image of the Virgin Mary. People are confessing their sins in public. Even when, as charismatics, we did it in public. I remember going to the one in Los Angeles with Father Tishner, the Jesuit, and they were not just going into a church, but the priests were out there hearing confessions behind parked cars in the streets. People could see that, oh, these are Christians. There's a Christian culture, open, public. When I went to Australia, there were people from the different nations, Polish and Dutch, Irish, Italians, and they decided to have a procession, a Christmas procession, through the town, going from one town or suburban town of Brisbane to another, to an open Christmas crib, where they had live sheep and people and babies, all representing Jesus at Bethlehem, just like St. Francis did at Gresham. The people of the area were not all Catholics, they were not all Christians, but they went through the streets for the miles between one area and the other, so like for 3 to 5 miles, and even the public newspaper came and took photographs of them. I happen to have some of these photographs. So this is what John is saying in this epistle. Unless we have a Christian culture competing, expressing, exposed to the local culture that is pagan, and it is totally pagan, and getting more and more pagan, so pagan that it suppresses the Christians in the area, even in their churches. Now, at the time of this plague, but they say that you can't go to church. Churches are closed. To me, that's horrendous. Here, the culture of the pagans are affecting the culture of the Christian and telling them what to do. People are afraid in our pagan culture in this country to give symbols of Christmas, of Jesus and His name in public, on their houses. They're subjecting themselves to the anti-culture of St. Nicholas and commercials. They're actually witnessing to commercialism and mythology against the real Jesus that we're celebrating. I, for one, I'd have to show you, I put a big display on the roof of the porch of my house. Big sign of Jesus Christ. Big picture of Jesus in the crib. And saying, Jesus is the reason for the season. People are afraid to do that. They put up Santa Claus, they put up candlesticks, they put up Christmas canes, they put up all things that, except for Jesus. You can't go to a store or a place, a public place, where they have bells ringing for the pot boiling, for the Salvation Army, and nobody talks about Jesus anymore. They went from Santa Claus to nothing, to donations. So, to greed, to money. You cannot serve God and money. So, read the epistle, the second epistle of John. Where are our street processions? Where are our proclamations of Jesus? When I went to Spain, they had the streets with all pictures, Christian symbols, and pictures of beautiful petals of flowers. And the Blessed Sacrament would come on those streets and crush the flowers, beautiful perfume. Everyone knew, whether they were practicing Catholics or non-Christian, Spanish, that their Jesus was in the land. So, Christian community is supposed to be an espousal presence of Jesus in public, reproducing Jesus' family, reproductive, converting the culture around us. Sad. You can have a parade at Christmas without a single symbol of Christianity in it. All kinds of things that are culturally secularist. And that's supposed to be a parade, a Christmas celebration. Christmas cards that don't mention Jesus. I tell you, in my own life, I receive a Christmas card that doesn't have about Jesus or a picture of Jesus, celebrating Jesus. That goes in the garbage. And not celebrate Christmas without Christ. I'm not afraid to wear symbols of Jesus Christ, to proclaim who is my master. They say, oh, you're wearing a cross, you're wearing this medallion of Jesus, the suffering Jesus. I said, that's my boss. That's the one that I honor, that I worship. And that is the essence of witnessing. The church itself, the parish itself, is supposed to be an outdoor, in public square, public witness as a bride of Jesus, not just the individual. Not just the individual. The individual too. It's hard to find that too. So it goes down to nothing. It goes down to suppression of freedom of religion. Why is there a lack of this witness in our society? Because the Christians have allowed it to happen. They're indifferent to the public notice of Jesus, the public proclamation of Him. I think we should, if this sounds too extreme, Jesus said, if you do not acknowledge me, if you acknowledge me in public, I will not acknowledge you. This is what John, evangelist, is saying. He was witnessing to Jesus, not just him, but the people that he was connecting to. And we'll see in book of Revelations how he connects to the parishes, to the churches in those different cities, not just to individuals. He will talk about individuals who are not witnessing, but when he talks about the communities, he's talking about communities who do not witness. I thank God that I'm old enough to have that witness in my own home parish. They were not afraid. That my pastor was not afraid to have public witness in the public square. That's what Lourdes is. That's what Medjugorje is. That's what Guadalupe is. They are fulfilling this. Jesus says, if you do not witness me among pagans, wherever you are, and if the churches themselves don't do it, you don't even know who's going to that church, unless people are. They can't even. What's really happening is that the Catholics cannot even witness to each other. And maybe it's a happy thing that some of them are going to churches and to organizations that do publicly witness. If you don't publicly witness as a body, as a community, it's very hard to witness as an individual. I try to do both. not glorify me. It's just, if it's done by so few, it's a condemnation of ourselves. People are witness and talk about so many things, so many secularist things, football games and heroes in sports. Look at the witness that there is of sports, called the Olympic Games. Is that a witness? Doesn't that convince people to join up and get involved in the sports? So much witness is being done. It's not that there is no witness, but there's no witness of Jesus. That is what the Lord condemns. That is what John Evangelist is saying in the second epistle. Be witnesses, individually and as community, to the secularism around you. Without that, Christ is not being proclaimed. Brothers and sisters, let's commit ourselves to keep Jesus in Christmas. Every Christian home should be publicly proclaiming the presence of Jesus. Not the wishes of Santa Claus, not the wishes of the red-nosed reindeer, of Jesus Christ. Are you making him compete against illusions? So let's get back to reality. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you.
Hello, God's beloved. I'm Annabelle Mosley, author, professor of theology, and host of Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. I invite you to listen in and find inspiration along this sacred journey we're traveling together to make our lives a masterpiece and, with God's grace, become saints. Join me, Annabelle Mosley, for Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. God bless you. Remember, you're never alone. God is always with you.
Thank you for listening to a production of WCAT Radio. Please join us in our mission of evangelization. And don't forget, love lifts up when knowledge takes flight.